Last time we talked about dating. We started our conversation about dating. We shared our story about dating. But let me ask you this question. Do you take dating seriously? Now, that's not to say it's not fun, but are you what I'll call a recreational dater? You just kind of date to meet different people and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think that when you become an adult, dating becomes very serious in your life because
Or should be.
it should be, yeah. And but it becomes serious because you could start having those adult feelings for somebody, and if you fall in love with somebody, if you fall in love, it's almost too late to get out, or at least it's more painful to get out. And have you ever thought about what are the non-negotiables, and what are the negotiables in your relationship? What are the things you can tolerate? What are the things you will not tolerate? We're going to answer that. We're Tim and Kimberly Scott. We are Hope Rescue Podcast. Thanks for listening today. We welcome you. And last time we talked about being unequally yoked.
What that meant.
Yes. We aren't going to go back into that.
We're going to be more practical, I think, this time.
Yeah, maybe a little more practical. Yeah.
Although it's all very practical.
So the scripture says, don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And really that's talking about false teachers. But we started talking about this before the podcast in preparation. We're talking about what I refer to as dating and discovery in your dating process. The first thing that you see about somebody is usually whether or not you're what?
Authentic?
No.
No.
Physically attractive. Yeah. So you see they're physically, he's authentic. No, he's ugly, but he's, and everybody has their own
version
thing,
of what attractive is. Yes.
You know, some people like cilantro. Is that what you call it? Cilantro?
Cilantro?
Yeah, cilantro. I just read this the other day that cilantro in about 10% of the population, it tastes to them like soap.
Oh, interesting.
So they hate cilantro.
Yeah. We could have never married if you didn't like cilantro.
I don't even know if I cared about cilantro till after we got married.
It's so
I changed
delicious.
everything about my life. I go to a restaurant and I say to Kimberly, what do
I
like
like again?
What do I like? What do I order here? Anyway, but that's the first thing you see. What's the second thing you see is their personality. You begin to understand their personality and their temperament type and so forth. The third thing in this process of discovery is you find out whether or not they have values or if your values are similar. We found that out very quickly, both being raised by pastors, and we both had a value of being in ministry. We had value of children and family. We had value of all kinds of things that were in common. And those are the first thing. But the final thing that you discover in dating, and a lot of people miss this, they fall in love with each other and even commit to each other for marriage before they find this out. The final fourth stage of discovery is character.
Yeah.
So you might have physical attraction with them, you might be attracted to their personality, and you might agree with their values. But if they don't have the character, that fourth stage, if they don't have the character to follow those values, you're not going to have a good relationship.
Should be at the top of the list, but you usually don't discover it.
Well, you can't discover.
Yeah, until you've been dating for a little bit.
Well, let's be honest about dating. Dating is about hiding your flaws until you're married. Because the minute you get back from the honeymoon, it is, hello, here's my baggage.
Which is your baggage now.
Now it's yours. It's really true. We try to hide our flaws.
Yeah.
In our case, and I felt this very strongly, when I met Kimberly, because I felt that she had been defrauded by somebody that wasn't honest about their sexuality and so forth. So I was like, okay, I want to be really honest. And so before we got serious, in fact, right after we met, I called her up and I said, here's my warts and all. I don't know what I said, but here's the stuff that I've struggled with, the mistakes I've made. And that's a pretty scary
The
moment,
real
I'm sure.
me. Yeah, I actually, I had mixed feelings about that because I had just come out of, I had a couple of years, but had come into a healthy space in my life where I was healing from having been wounded by, my first husband. And so my whole goal in that season when we met was to self-protect in my healing process and to protect my children. So, which is impossible to do when you're going to open your actual heart to love. You can't do that. You can't stay self-protector. You don't really have intimacy. And I knew when I met you that this is a man that I feel like I could spend the rest of my life with. So when you did that, what happened was, yes, there was an initial reaction of a little bit of like, oh, he has a story. And then I shared my stories with you.
Yeah.
And then what I walked away with was greater respect for him because he led with that. It wasn't something that was pulled out, down the road after we were married or whatever. Oh, by the way, like in my first marriage, oh, by the way, I'm gay.
Yeah.
So
I think it's really important to be honest with somebody, but here's the truth of dating. Until you know you're going to commit to that person.
Yeah.
And I knew right away that I was willing to commit to you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we only met for 4 hours and we exchanged emails
something
and so forth.
Supernatural did happen there, though.
It was obviously, it was really quick, but I thought, if I'm going to get serious, then I'm going to do all the things that are important to me. And I wanted to be honest about that. I wanted to ask your father, even though you'd been married before, I wanted to ask who, my biblical responsibility as I saw it was to go to him and say, hey, I'd like to date your daughter. I actually said court. Because I'm 95 years old.
No, I love that.
I'd like to court your
Courting
daughter.
is different
How old
than
are
dating.
you, bro?
Courting is with intention to marry. That's different.
It's not a term that's used a lot today. But anyway, so I told him that I wanted to court, that I wanted to be honest about my intentions. And then when we knew that we wanted to marry, I went to him and asked for
permission.
your hand in marriage.
Here
But
I was 38 years old
and 5 kids. But the fact of the matter is, until you're ready to commit, you don't want to share everything about your life.
Right.
You don't just share that with somebody that you don't know if you trust that person with your stuff.
Right.
We all have things in our past. And especially if you are over 30 years old, you're going to have those. But dating, in honesty, is concealing your problems. But your goal should be to uncover that through the process of dating, and honest conversation about all those things.
And I think some folks wisely wait that out until there is safety in a relationship. So there's commitment. That's wise, and for us, we had already known each other's intentions. And so it actually made me feel even more safe after we had those conversations in our relationship. So what do you do when you reach an impasse in a conversation with someone that you're dating?
This was something our daughter brought up. What do you do when you reach kind of a crossroad or an impasse when you don't go? We wrote down several things that we thought would be important.
Yeah, like if you can't get straight answers, what do you do at that point? In my opinion, you walk away.
Yeah. If somebody's being we did a podcast a couple of years ago on gaslighting.
Yes.
And one of the things on gaslighting is that you're not being straightforward. You're not saying what really is. In fact, what you try to do is make that person think, what you think I said that? That's not what I said.
Make that other person feel crazy.
Make them feel crazy. Yeah. And you're constantly trying to change the subject or change their views of it. And I agree with you, Kimberly. I think people need to walk away if somebody's not being honest.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to hide something, you don't want to be honest.
Yeah.
And if somebody's going to hide from you, that's going to be a problem. Second thing we talked about is one of the reasons to abstain from sex before marriage. And there are many reasons to do that. One is a moral issue, but setting aside the moral issue, one of the reasons to abstain from sex before marriage is because your souls, when you have sex with a person, your souls are actually connected. And Paul even said that when you have sexual relationships with a prostitute, your soul you become one with that prostitute. He said, why would you do that? And when you have a sexual relationship with somebody, when you have sexual intercourse with somebody, your soul is connected with that individual. And if you find out later on that you want to walk away from that relationship, it's going to be painful,
So painful.
more painful if you hadn't gone into that realm. And so I think when we talk about reaching that point of impasse is that when you reach an impasse, if you've already been physically intimate, it's going to be very difficult for you to walk away. And a lot of people have suffered from that.
We've seen that happen a lot in young couples that are dating that begin to, sleep together, live together, whatever. And then at some point they realize this is not my person. But extracting themselves from that relationship can go on for like a year or two.
Yeah. And
so painful because it's such a deep intimacy that happens in your soul and your heart when you've made that decision. So it's not like, the moral directive is to make you have a really sad, lonely life and not to be able to experience physical touch and all those things. It's actually to help you have your best life, to protect your heart and your future with the person that you will spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah, and just the opposite of what the world's advice is. Well, you need to find out if you're sexually compatible.
Yeah.
Listen, people that you need to understand this. If you are emotionally compatible, you have the same values, and you truly love each other, and sex is about giving. Sex is about meeting somebody's needs. And if you find that this person is willing to do that, they're going to be a good lover. You're not going to struggle with that. That is, the physical mechanics mean very little. What matters is the soul connection. I got kind of in deep on the weeds on that. But anyway, the third thing that we talked about is agree to take time to think and then come back after a time and try again. So when you reach an impasse, it's okay to take a break in that conversation. We've had to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And there have been times that when we didn't do it, we should have. It wouldn't have gone to a bad place.
Right.
And I can be difficult at times. I'm a big lover, but I'm also very opinionated, as
I
my
can be stubborn.
whole family knows. Yeah. And so if you can walk away and think about it, whenever I do that, I always think about how is this impacting the person I'm talking to. It gives me perspective. So when you reach an impasse, it's okay to back off of that, especially in a dating relationship.
So, and if he or she's a high feeler, you'll need to take breaks in conversations to think about how to approach the sensitive issues. So again, stepping away instead of, if you're the high feeler or if the person you're talking to is a high feeler, they are going to react, and sometimes really big.
Yeah, and I think we need to be clear. Not all high feelers are emotional expressors.
Right.
Not everybody has high feeling, and they can pout, they can hold it in. And what we want to know is, how to deal with somebody who's very, very sensitive, very emotional, and that takes time as well.
Right. And are you up for that job?
Right. Yeah.
Because if that's
high
the way,
feelers are difficult.
It's the very thing that attracts you to them because you always know what they're thinking and how they're feeling. But then the feelings can become the actual driver of life. And so are you willing to jump on that ride? And so, you got to weigh it out.
If you're clumsy, relationally clumsy, and a lot of us are, and your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend is a high feeler, you're probably not going to be compatible. I'm thankful that you're not a high feeler because if you were, I'm clumsy a lot of times. I say things I shouldn't. I'm abrupt sometimes. I don't, and it's not my heart; it's my head. I don't really think with my compassion or empathy or whatever, and I just blurt out my
You're
philosophical
directive.
view.
Your
I'm
temperament is to be very
direct.
directive. Yeah.
Yeah, and directive, yes, but I'm also direct and opinionated. So if you were a high feeler, we would struggle.
Yeah. I
I've
would,
dated some high feelers, didn't work.
yeah. I grew a thick skin through the years.
Well, your dad's like me. He's
yes,
abrupt,
and that's why it's probably less.
I thank God for your dad for that.
You're very similar.
Yeah.
In all the good ways too. So, okay, the next one is if they're a high conflict person, you will need to decide if you can live with that. So that kind of goes in tow with what we were just saying. But there are some people who seem to be in conflict or addicted to conflict or always in working towards conflict or stepping out of a conflict. So if that's the kind of personality, then you need to really think about, is this something you can live with,
Yeah, I think we did a podcast on what I call HCPs. I didn't come up with that. There's actually a whole website for high conflict people or high conflict persons. And, Scripture calls it enmities. And in having enmities, in Galatians 5, he says, one of the manifestations of the flesh, when you are walking in your flesh, you're going to have enmities, which means a bent towards having enemies. Some people, if they don't have an enemy, they will find an enemy with people around them that they love. And, with their children, their spouse, their friends, their parents, their siblings, whatever it is. And those are painful people to be around. They're very difficult to be around.
Yes.
And if you are in a relationship with a HCP, a high conflict person, that's going to be tough.
It's draining.
Yeah.
So number 6 is if the person is aggressive, you will need to decide if you can live with this person who needs to have control. That is a red flag. If you're dating someone and they're already aggressive, I would just say, God bless you. Because
I'm aggressive.
If
Folks, I'm aggressive.
Here's the thing: in dating, you were not aggressive.
I cheated you.
You did have some moments.
I had some moments.
Yeah, but that goes very much along with your temperament of being a driven personality. And again, like my dad, he was driven and had some aggressive moments. I'm not talking about aggression in that way. I'm talking about aggression towards you personally. If you're dealing with someone who is aggressive toward you, that's a red flag.
I don't think I'm aggressive towards you.
No, I think when you feel like things are spinning out of control, you get aggressive. But not to me personally. It's actually at the situation
my employees over the years, for 45 years, I was not aggressive with my employees. I really tried to I'm very directive. So I'm a high D in the DISC scale. For those of you, nobody ever talks about DISC analysis anymore. But
you're an 8 on the Enneagram. A lot of people would understand that.
I'd go with a D. I'm a high D, a directive, not an I. You're a high I influencer. So I try to use influence. I forgot what they called it, a secondary or my default setting. No, you're thinking in Enneagram. But on the DISC, I try to modify being a directive person and increase influencer. That's a person that's trying to manifest love.
Right. That's maturity.
So just because somebody is an 8, to get back to yours,
which is God-given temperament.
And then you need to understand who they are. Are they a person who has love? And if they are, then you
and
can
have they submitted their life to the Lord? Like all of that comes into play in a dating relationship, because those are the people that get things done, and we need them. The people that are they charge, and then the unhealthy side of that is that obviously it can turn into aggression, but they're aggressively getting things done. Yeah. So that's a respectable thing. If you're an 8, please don't feel spanked. We actually are grateful for you.
Yeah, I don't feel spanked at all. Okay. Negotiables and non-negotiables. We really wanted to get to this. Negotiables, things that don't rise to the level of a relationship killer. Can't think of a better way to put it than that. There are things that don't matter that much to you, whereas non-negotiables, things that will destroy the relationship, things you are unwilling to tolerate.
Right.
There are differences that we have that will not be a problem.
They just don't matter. Like, for instance, which side of the bed do you want to sleep on?
By the way, I did not realize when we came back from our honeymoon
Yeah.
that we chose sides, and you're stuck with that for
You
the rest of
literally
your marriage.
never change. It's so bizarre, isn't it?
As if you're looking from the foot of the bed to the head of the bed, I'm on the right side, no matter where the door is, because I want to protect. So I got my gun. Okay, it's a
Your
squirt
guns,
gun.
babe,
I got
your
my squirt gun.
arms.
My guns. Yeah, wait, you didn't let me fly. Anyway, I'm ready to protect.
Yeah.
But actually, in our old house, now I'm on the door side now,
Mm-hmm.
but in our old house, the one we built together, you were on the door side, so the robber was going to get to you.
It was so
before
I
he got
could
to
get
me.
quickest to the youngest child at the time.
And I think
so.
it was to get to the bathroom, but whatever. I'm just being honest. So the reality is that that's a choice you're stuck with forever.
Yeah, but there's some things that don't matter, like things like, well, you're a morning person and he's not, or, I'm a night person, or
When we married, you were not a morning person, but you are way more now than you used to be.
I think I was, but not because I wanted to be. I was
In order to be
getting
a morning person, you have to get up in the morning.
I just think I was a morning person because I had so many kids to get ready for school and get out the door and all these different campuses to get them to. So I was a reluctant morning person. And I am a morning person now in the sense that, but I'm reasonable. You're unreasonable. You're like a morning at 5:30 kind of person. I'm like a morning
I love
person.
the commercial. It's for some insurance companies. This guy is teaching people not to be like their
Yes.
dad. You buy a house and he teaches you how not to act like your parents. And one of the things he says is, take the pillows off there and so forth. It's a great commercial. But one of them is that nobody cares that you got up early.
Yeah,
Nobody cares that
5:30.
you got up at 5:30. And,
It's so true.
And I
Old
tell
people
people,
all the
I
time.
tell people stuff
You
they don't
do.
care.
I always want-
And they don't, you're at a restaurant, the waiter doesn't need to know your name. Anyway, romantic versus non-romantic.
Yeah.
What is a person who's non-romantic? Are they? I don't know.
I'm not sure that should make it on a non-negotiable list, like.
That's a negotiable.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. It's a negotiable.
yeah.
So
what we're going to do is we're going to go through a list of things, and we're not going to tell you what is negotiable and non-negotiable.
things to talk about.
We're going to talk about these, and you need to decide for yourself.
Right.
For some people, like for example, if they're married to somebody that has marginal hygiene, that's a
Yeah.
non-negotiable.
Right, yeah.
That would be for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And both of us are that way. We're big on hygiene. But anyway, number one, read our number one.
yeah, how many children do you want?
I
And-
wanted 4. You had 5. I
So
had
we
2.
threw one out. No,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
no, but to a young couple, I love your wisdom on this because you in the past when
First of all, before you go there, let me just say, if you are dating and you are talking about marriage and you have not talked about how many children you both want, you individually want, you need to talk about that. Don't wait till after you're married to talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So on that point about kids, though, I love that you've always said, if one says I want 2 and the other says I want 5, the one who wants the least should win.
Yeah.
Because you need to sign up for the fact that anything past that point, you're going to make your marriage miserable, unless they have a change of hearts at some point. But you go into it saying, we will have 2.
And they don't change their heart because you badgered them.
Right.
But
Exactly.
think about this. Now, I always wanted a big family. So, I raised 2 children before I met Kimberly. They were adults, both girls. I really wanted a son. When I was a young man, I wanted a son. I really wanted girls, though. That was like, if I had to choose, I wanted girls. And God gave me 4 daughters now and 3 sons.
3 sons, yeah.
But when Kimberly, I found out that Kimberly had 5 children, that was a bonus to me. That was not a problem.
I remember
that was
you
actually a
wrote me
bonus.
that in my first one of our first correspondence when we hadn't even met. You knew I had 5 kids, and you said in that email, you may be wondering how I feel about 5 kids. I just want you to know that that's not a non-issue to me.
Actually,
I
I said it
came
was a
from
good
a
thing.
big family, and I
Yeah.
always wanted a big family. And I remember reading that and crying because in the dating world, there was lots of folks who wanted to date me but didn't want 5 kids.
Yeah. And you get 5 kids. Somebody said, "Why did you marry a woman with 5 kids?" I said, "She's that hot."
Oh, babe,
So,
you win.
but no,
you
I
win,
wanted
you
the
get
kids.
the prize.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
more non-negotiables would be, what kind of house do you want? What kind of cars? Who decorates the house? These are things to contemplate.
Yeah, negotiating how many kids, negotiating what kind of house or what kind of cars. Like we decided on your car. The way we decided, first car that I bought for you was you wanted a certain car. You brought it home with the
doing
dealer
a test drive.
And I'm like, okay, I have to buy that. And then you showed me the next car that I bought for you, and you wanted that car, so I secretly bought that.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
you have to decide whether these are negotiables or non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Who decorates the house? That was a non-negotiable because Kimberly decided.
Yes.
And we don't have time to go into the whole story, but I can tell you the furniture in my house did not come with me. It got sold or went to the dump or wherever it went. Didn't go to the dump. It got sold. And now we live with only Kimberly's choice of furniture.
Sweetie, it's been 15 years. Let it
Yeah,
go.
let it go. All right.
Another thing is how much income.
Yeah.
So is this like a negotiable or non-negotiable with you? Is how much income
Think
do you
about
make
that.
or they make? And
Yeah, let's say you were raised by a very wealthy man, a very wealthy father, and you're marrying a guy who's got a blue-collar job that makes $60,000 a year, and your father was a millionaire. You're not. That's going to be a struggle. You need to get on the other side of that. That could be a problem. Number 5, where will you live when you get married? We have 2 daughters that are not married, 3 that aren't married, but 2 that don't care. They could live anywhere. They go to New York. It's exciting.
well, a third one that actually is in Detroit. Like all of our daughters are down for adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's married. Our boys, it's non-negotiable. They live in San Diego or we're not getting married.
Right.
You got to figure that out. Number 6, what about your political views?
Yeah, that could be a
now,
big
you
one.
have to decide. I think of I can't remember their names, but they're on 2 opposite. Madeline, I can't remember her whole name, but anyway, she's right wing, and her husband is very liberal, and they have a great marriage and children, and they're doing great. That is very unusual. You have to decide if that's a non-negotiable. Another one is. What about theology, church background? I wish we had more time for this.
Yeah, we don't
but
have a lot of time left.
Kimberly came from a Pentecostal background. I grew up in an evangelical or Baptist church, and so those are not real compatible. And some of you might wonder, what is that going to be a problem? That has not been a problem in our marriage. She knows I'm right, and no, but we get along about that.
And he speaks in tongues, so we've met somewhere in the middle.
We don't worry about those things, and it's the old saying, on the essentials, unity; on the non-essentials, liberty; and all things love. Some non-essentials, our essentials would be: who is Christ? Is he the Savior? Is he God incarnate? Those are, style of worship. That's not an essential. You got to let it go if you have a difference.
Yeah. What about like age difference, or whether or not they've been divorced, or what about, the possibility of blending a family, which was our situation, or their personality and temperament. These are all ideas and things for you to consider, to communicate about, and find out where they stand on that. And they aren't necessarily, deal breakers.
Yeah, you have to decide.
But it's individual.
Like on the age difference, you have to decide how much older can that person be than me?
Right.
So you have to, or how much younger. So you have to decide those going in. Yeah. Hopefully this is helpful. I wish we had more time to break that down. Maybe we'll come back and spend a little more time on it. Thank you for listening to Hope Rescue Podcast. Invite your friends to listen. We love you. God bless you. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.